book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I have a recommendation video for you. So I'm here with my oat milk chai latte, the best drink in the world, to go through some romance novels that I am recommending you read this February. Valentine's Day is coming up. I don't actually celebrate the holiday being a single lady myself, but I do love romance stories. So I do have 7 different categories, and each has about 2 books under each category. Some of them have 5 because they have like a companion trilogy attached to it. But these are just some books that have romances in them, whether very prominent or more as a subplot, that I highly recommend you give a try if you haven't already. Something I wanted to mention before I get into this is that whenever I make a recommendation list, there's a few things that I realize. One, that I don't own that many books. I might own more than the average person, but being relatively new to the book community, I didn't really start Instagram or BookTube until about 2020. My shelves are still not as full as a lot of book lovers, and therefore I don't have as much to pull from. The second thing I always realize is where the gaps in my reading are when it comes to diversity. So I do understand that there are definitely some prominent groups that may be missing from this list, and I am, as always, looking for recommendations that will allow me to explore those groups more, and am always being active in my improvement in my inclusion of different minority groups within my reading. So I do understand that most of these characters are either male-male romance or heterosexual couples, and I am looking to improve that throughout this year and throughout my lifetime. As I go through these categories, I would love to see your recommendations for those categories down below as well. These are all categories I really enjoy reading, or tropes, I guess you could say, that I enjoy reading and would love to see more books that fall under that trope. Without further ado, I will go ahead and jump right in. I'll try to keep what I say about each book relatively short, just because we have so many books to get through. For the first category, we have 2 books that have a trans representation. Both of these are YA stories. So as I mentioned, improvements on my behalf is to explore trans characters within the adult genre a bit more. Within the last few months is when I started picking up more non-binary and trans characters or books with those characters, and I've really been enjoying them. So I'm looking forward to reading even more books with that type of representation. But my first one is Birthday by Meredith Russo. This is a trans author as well. It is a YA contemporary story, and we are following a young woman who is living in a small town that is not very forward thinking, and is realizing that they identify as female rather than as the male they were born as. This book was incredibly moving. I was surprised by how emotional I got while reading it. I've come not to expect too much depth from a YA story, but this really dived deep into the trans experience. Obviously, every trans experience is a different, but this one really dived deep into the young trans woman who is within a community that does not accept any forms of queerness. We definitely see this character struggle with their mental health and turning to bad coping mechanisms. But we do have a wonderfully supportive friend who is there throughout the story, even when they don't understand what's going on, because our main character is not opening up about their transness. They are doing their best to be supportive of their friend, and this friendship does eventually turn into a romance. So it's a wonderful story about someone who finds a place for themselves in the world. So while there is a lot of sadness and struggle in this book, it does have a happy ending, which is something we love to see in queer stories. The next book is one I've probably talked about quite a bit recently because it was in my 5-star prediction outcome video, as well as a recent wrap up because I read it in January, and that is The Witch King by H.E. Edgman. This is written by a queer indigenous author. Let me double check. So it does mention that the author enjoys fighting for the rights of trans people. I'm not sure if they are non-binary or are trans themselves, but either way, the main character is a trans character and they are also a witch. They ran away from the Fae Kingdom after losing control of their powers due to them experiencing a lot of bullying in their youth. Witches are very much discriminated against within the Fae Kingdom, and within the story there's a lot of parallels between the treatment of witches and queer people. At the beginning of this book, our main character Wyatt, his ex-best friend and fiance Emmett, I keep forgetting if his name's Emery. It's Emery, sorry. Emery comes to retrieve him and bring him back to the Fae Kingdom because his throne is being threatened by his cousin. We get to see Wyatt as he tries to escape this role that he has been given since he was very young, and at the same time as they start to realize that they could use their position of power to help those that are being discriminated against. So I did like the character development that was experienced throughout the story. The romance within it between him and Emery, I thought had a very natural progression. They had been very much best friends and then became enemies because Wyatt felt that Emery did not understand him because Emery is a fae and doesn't understand fully what it means to be a witch that's discriminated within this fae kingdom. But watching them as they communicated and learned more about each other and kind of fell in love again was a really enjoyable experience. All right, the next category we have is mental health representation. The first book that I have to recommend is a well-known contemporary romance and is also known for the mental health representation that is present within it, and that is The Charm Offensive by Alison Cotron. This is a male-male romance between Dev and Charlie and takes place on the set of a Bachelor-esque show. So Dev has worked for this show for a few years and is usually the handler of the princesses, but in this season Charlie is going to be the prince, and he has a lot of social anxiety and no experience when it comes to reality TV. So Dev is assigned to help him through this process. This book deals a lot with anxiety, I believe OCD as well, and depression. So it has a few different forms of mental health representation in here. We get to see the two of them as they kind of slowly open up to each other and learn to trust each other with their problems, and as they form a friendship which eventually turns into a romance. So it is a slow burn romance. I really enjoyed the setting of this. I enjoyed the side characters within here. I really enjoyed all the different types of representation, whether it was different people's sexuality, racial diversity, or mental health representation throughout this story. It just had a lot going for it. I did enjoy the way the author showed that it was really great to have a supportive partner in a relationship who understood your mental health issues, but also that sometimes it was okay to step away from a relationship for a little while to focus on just yourself. So I really enjoyed the way that that was addressed, because in a lot of books, it kind of makes it seem like finding the love of your life is going to solve your mental health issues, and this book very much told you that it's not going to, that it will of course make things better, but that you needed to continuously work on your mental health, that it was still very much present and part of your life. So wonderful story, very, very sweet romance, and all around a wonderful book. Next, we have a book from one of my go-to authors, and she'll make an appearance later in this video as well, and that is Work For It by Talia Hibbert. I believe this is her first male romance, and in this story we are following a man who recently had his trust broken by a partner who released some inappropriate photos of him, and he is kind of escaping his town to kind of hide away in a small town for a while and just get away from, you know, all the issues that he's been having mentally recently. He's really been struggling with trying to form relationships with new people because his trust was broken. So he ends up in this small town in hopes of picking berries, something, you know, there's a small farm there, and he's looking to do some work there, kind of pretending that he's going to be writing a book about it, so that they allow him to work there. And there he meets Griffin, and Griffin is kind of the head worker at this farm, and he is very much an outcast within the town. His mother had him out of wedlock and had passed away a few years ago, and he's been kind of just seen as this unlikable, unlovable giant in the town. He's also openly queer, which in the small town is seen as a flaw, and he spends a lot of time alone and feeling very unaccepted within the place that he is. Our two characters find themselves working together and constantly drawn together and start talking about some of the issues that they are having in their life and helping each other kind of overcome those, and that friendship and that support system becomes a romance, of course. I thought that this romance was really sweet. I found both characters rather unlikable at the beginning, but towards the end, or you know, even partially through the book, I started to find myself very much rooting for the two of them to find their happily ever after with each other. So a very sweet and emotional read with some decent steamy scenes as well. Next category is books with characters who have a disability. For the first book, we have a book that I read a few years ago, maybe like 3 or so years ago, and I have been meaning to reread it for a while, but I just haven't gotten around to it. It's just one of those stories where I had like a couple romantic scenes that really stick with you. It's a mass paperback, but this author seems to be very well known for her male romances in the historical romance genre, and that is A Soldier's Scoundrel by Cat Sebastian. So I read all the books within this trilogy of companion novels, and I did enjoy them all. This one was my favorite and is the only one that I physically own. Sorry, there's a fruit bug or fruit fly flying around. But in this book we have So we have Jack, who is sort of a criminal. I can't remember exactly what he's done. Like I said, I definitely need to reread this book. I feel like he helps women who are in possibly abusive situations, but don't quote me on that. But I believe he is working with Oliver's sister on some sort of case, and Oliver, being suspicious of his sister working with a criminal, decides to kind of follow Jack around to make sure that he's not doing anything that'll endanger his sister. And as they spend time together, they form a relationship. So you could kind of say that this is like a little bit of enemies to lovers, some forced proximity situations within this story. Oliver is a soldier who experienced an injury in the war and does have to use a cane and experiences pain because of his injury throughout this story. I just remember it being a very sexy story with a lot of tension between our characters, a lot of great banter as well, with a very satisfying and sweet ending. Next, we have a book that made it onto my top books of the year list, and that is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This is a romance between two people who spend 7 days together when they were teenagers, and then have not seen each other since that time. They are both authors and have, in a way, been writing to each other through their books. Our main character, Ava, does suffer from a chronic illness. She experiences severe migraines, which cause her debilitating pain from time to time, and it is something that is discussed throughout this story. We also follow the love interest, Shane, who is a recovering alcoholic, and the two of them finally meet up after years, and Shane wants to be a part of her and her daughter's life again. He wants to kind of rekindle that passion that they had in their youth. There's a lot of exploring of deep emotions and of past struggles, and of just trying to find a place in the world where you're very secure in yourself. I absolutely loved the writing in the story. I thought it was very romantically written, and that the passion between our two characters was very obvious, very addicting to read. I did listen to the audiobook for this story, which was a wonderful experience if you're into audiobooks. I always enjoy watching people rebuild relationships, and the author did a really great job of the two characters kind of realizing each other's flaws, but accepting them. Similar to The Charm Offensive, this author also did focus on the need to heal on your own before fully putting your health in the hands of a partner, which I appreciated. This book also had some subplots that weren't just focused on the romance that I really enjoyed. Ava was trying to repair some relationships with her mother while also focusing on being a good mother herself. I also enjoyed her struggle to kind of become the author that she wanted to be. So overall, I felt deeply in love with both of these characters and their relationship, and just highly recommend this incredible moving romance. These next two books are probably the two with the least amount of romance, and that is because these are romances that are heavily focused on the trope of found family. The first book is an obvious one if you are ever looking at a list for found family representation. This is gonna be on there, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. In this book, we follow a caseworker who goes to orphanages that specialize in magical children and makes sure that they are up to code. He's very much someone who's fully committed to his career and has very little, if not nothing, going on outside of that. One day he is sent to a very special orphanage where some incredibly dangerous children are located, and he's kind of there to see if this place needs to be shut down. While he is there, we see him as he kind of relaxes a little bit more and starts to enjoy the little aspects of life and living to your fullest instead of just focusing only on your job. We also see as he grows closer to the master of the orphanage and realizing that there could be more to his life. So this book I thought was just incredibly sweet. I know this book made a lot of people cry because of out of joy or something. I'm not much of a crier when it comes to like happy moments, so it personally didn't make me cry. But it definitely brought a smile to my face and a lightness to my heart, and it was just really wonderful to see him create these relationships with all these, you know, unique children and just kind of, you know, question the way that he has been living, as well as the way that his organization that he's dedicated so much of his life to is run. The romance is definitely very subtle, but I thought that it was very impactful in the way that it was done. The next found family book is Sky Falling by Mia Mackenzie. In this book, we are following a woman called Sky, obviously based off the title. And I believe she does like group tours around the world. So she'll like take a group of people to a destination and explore that area with her. She's very much someone who wants to be on the move, who doesn't want to be at home. She doesn't really have a home. She doesn't really have roots. But one day she meets a young girl who is saying that she is her biological mother because Sky had donated some eggs to a woman who was not able to have her own children, and that woman has now since passed away. This young girl is living with her aunt, but wants to get to know her biological mother, Sky. So Sky decides to stay put for once for a little while to get to know this young woman. If you enjoy books that have, you know, quirky, fun, strong-willed children in them, similar to The House in the Cerulean Sea, you're really going to enjoy the little girl that is present in this book. There is a romance between the aunt and our main character Sky, as the two of them kind of bond over the love of this young girl, and Sky starts to realize that maybe it's time for her to stop running and maybe rekindle some relationships from her past. I really thought that this book was really well balanced. I thought that the author gave enough time for the relationship between the two women to be believable and for me to fully support it, but she didn't write it in such a way that it overshadowed Sky's relationship with the young girl, which is one of the bigger plot points of this story. So I thought it was just a heartwarming time, and I really enjoyed the found family that Sky found in here. And doing a bit of a 180 here, we are going from found family to books with some BDSM themes in them. I'm relatively new to this genre, so the books I'm about to talk about are honestly kind of the only ones I've read. I've read a few others that have like a slight BDSM theme to them, especially if they're like a monster romance. But these are the books where it was the most prominent to the story. So the first one is an Alexis Hall book. It's the first book that I ever read by Alexis Hall, and it's called For Real. In this book, we follow Lawrence. Lawrence is a doctor. He's, very successful in his career. He's got money. He's pretty much set. However, he is not very happy. He lost a relationship a few years ago, or yeah, it says 6 years on from his last relationship. So he hasn't been in a relationship for about 6 years, and you know, the loneliness is really getting to him. And one day he stumbles across Toby, who is a young man, a lot younger than him. So there is an age gap in this relationship. Toby is trying to get into the BDSM field as a master, or as a dom, not as a master, as a master, but as a dom. And because he's small and young and inexperienced, no one's really giving him the opportunity to do this. But Lawrence is a submissive, and he is, you know, looking for someone, and he figures, why not help this young man, you know, train, improve his skills as a dominant, since he himself wouldn't mind the company. Throughout this story, we get to watch the two characters as they kind of grow trust between each other, which is very important when two people come together for more kinky sex. The communication between the two is excellent, which is usually something I like within BDSM books, because communication is such an important part between couples. I really enjoyed watching Lawrence as he kind of tried to accept that this relationship was something that he deserved, and kind of bringing him back to life. I also enjoyed Toby. He's a very strong character. He knows very much what he wants and is fighting very hard to get that, even though so far life has kind of been pushing him down because of it. But their relationship, I thought the two of them really balanced each other out and really helped both of them grow as characters. I thought that the sex scenes were really well done. Of course, like I said, I don't have much experience with these stories, so I don't have much to compare it to. In fact, this was my first BDSM book, so I had nothing to compare it to. But you know, I found them very sexy, very entertaining, and well written. So overall, this was a really great first time experience with this type of trope. The next three books I all read on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, these are available there. It is called the Undue Arrogance series, and at this time there are 3 books on there. The first one is His Cocky Valet, and then there's His Cocky Cellist and His Cocky Prince. I read His Cocky Cellist first, and then read the first one and then the third one, but they're all companion novels, so it doesn't really matter what order you read them in. All 3 of these books have a slight BDSM theme to them. In His Cocky Cellist, we are following a young man who is incredibly wealthy, and he goes to get a massage one day because he's stressed out. So his friend was like, go get a massage. And he finds himself intrigued by the masseuse, who is a cellist, and our character asks him if he could help him relearn the cello, because he used to play it when he was younger, and he's hoping that by learning to play it again, he can use it as like a stress reliever. As they spend more time together, they start to have a sexual relationship, which becomes a dom and submissive relationship. Our character, our wealthy character, I don't know any of their names at this point, I'm sorry, is new to BDSM, as well as being in a relationship with a man. So this is opening a lot of doors to him. So if you want to read about BDSM from the point of view of someone who's very new to it, His Cocky Cellist is a good place to start. His Cocky Valet is between a butler, he's like a butler, and the young, kind of reckless, unresponsible man that he is trying to train, because this man's father is dying of cancer and he needs to be prepared to take over the family business. This one does have an age gap as well, and is definitely a relationship where in the office one of them is very much in power, and when they're in the bedroom the other one is very much in power. So I really enjoyed that relationship very much. I thought it was very steamy. With all of these books, Cole McCade has a excellent writing style that works very well with these romantic stories that include a very kinky sex. The third one is his Cocky Prince, and this one is also an age gap and is between two actors, one of which is a prince and the other who is a very famous actor within the romance genre. And this one is consensual non-consent when it comes to the theme. So this one would be considered possibly the most violent. I didn't think that it went too far or anything like that. For someone who had never read that trope before, it didn't shock me or make me feel uncomfortable or anything like that. I thought the author throughout all these stories built really wonderful relationships, had really great steamy scenes within all the stories, and that every book is a great place to start if you're interested in the BDSM trope. All right, so two more categories to go. The second to last category is romances with plus size characters. The first one is a well-known trilogy. I only own one of the books, and that is the Brown Sister trilogy. Act Your Age, Eve Brown is the third and my favorite, which is why I own it. But all of the sisters within this trilogy are plus size Black women. These could also fall under disability rep. Since the first one, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, she does have a chronic illness. And in this one, Eve Brown has autism, as does her love interest. I believe they mentioned in this book that all three sisters could be considered on the autism spectrum, but as far as Danny, take the hint, Danny, get a hint, whatever the title is, I don't remember her having any other disabilities other than the possibility of having autism. All these stories have all the pluses that come with Talia Hibbert's writing. There's a really great humor. The connection between the characters is excellent. Excellent tension, excellent banter. The sex scenes are great. I mean, she doesn't write my favorite sex scenes. For some reason, I don't fully connect to them, but they're still a really great time. I'm not really complaining here. But overall, this one was definitely my favorite. I thought it was the funniest. Eve was definitely my favorite character. She's very much a free spirit and is just trying to find her place in the world, and it was very much a grumpy sunshine situation, which I enjoyed. In Get a Life, Chloe Brown, I want to say they were kind of enemies to lovers, like the two of them didn't like each other at the beginning, and then I don't know if it was like fake dating, but she like had a list of things that she wanted to do and he offered to help her with that, which caused the two of them to become closer. And take a hint, Danny Brown was a friends to lovers situation, which I also enjoyed. All Talia Hibbert's, or not all, but I think maybe all of Talia Hibbert's romances are also interracial couples. So her female characters tend to be Black, and then the main male characters are either white or I believe in Take a Hint, Danny Brown, he was Asian, West Asian. So there is also that diversity present in these books. Next, we have another YA story, and that is Here the Whole Time by Victor Martinez. One of our main characters is plus-sized, and both of our characters are Hispanic as well. In this book, we are following a young character. I don't know if it says how old he is. He's in high school, so however old he is. And it is now winter break, and he is very excited to spend his time alone in his room, reading, doing whatever, not interacting with people. But he finds out that his neighbor is going to be staying with them because his parents are going on a trip or something. And this is a character that he was friends with when he was younger, but he kind of pulled away and ended this friendship when he realized that he was no longer the cute chubby kid, he was just the chubby kid, and that people were starting to look down on him for being plus sized, and he was worried that this friend would start to look down at him as well. So he decided to just end the relationship to prevent any harm happening to him. Throughout the story, we kind of watch them as they rekindle this relationship, and our main character starts to grow more confident in the person that he is, and of course developing a crush on this neighbor who is sleeping in his room with him, because, you know, what's a guy to do? I thought that this book was just really sweet. It was a sweet coming of age story, a sweet self-acceptance story. There is some side characters as well that are struggling with some body image issues as well. And it just kind of helped our character realize that there's a lot of people that were struggling with this, but the importance of having a supportive friend group there to just make sure that you feel good about who you are as a person. I thought the relationship was very sweet and did a good job of addressing the insecurities of your average teenager. All right, guys, last category, which is good because I am out of my drink. But this category is soulmates. So these are just characters that I think are meant to be. Obviously, most of these romances, I could say that these two people are perfect for each other, and there's a dozen other romances that I could list, but these are just two that I decided I wanted to talk about. So the first one takes mates quite literally, while the other is just, I think they're a wonderful couple. So A Wolf Song by TJ Klune is the first book on this list. This is his Green Creek series, book number 1. Is my favorite. I did read and enjoy all the books in this one. In the story, we follow a family of werewolves. They move next door to a young boy called Ox. This book is told from the point of view of Ox. A few years ago, his father up and left and told Ox that he would never amount to anything, which is a crappy thing for a father to do. And then one day, Ox is coming back from his job at the mechanical shop. I'm going to call it a mechanical shop. And he sees that a family is moving in next door to his and his mom's house. And this young boy runs up to him and is just babbling his head off. And he's like, who is this kid? And when he approaches the house with this kid, and this kid is telling people that he smells like pine cones and candy canes and awesomeness, and his family looks completely shocked, and Ox is just like, hey guys, I'm Ox. And it turns out that this is a family of werewolves, and Joe went through a traumatic experience that year and has not talked for such a long time. So his family was so surprised when their son finally opened up and seemed to start his healing process because of Ox. So Ox becomes a prominent member of this family, and as they grow older, he eventually starts to realize that his good friend Joe may be more than just a friend. This book deals a lot with grief throughout the entire series. There are some villains in the story, and they face a lot of obstacles and a lot of loss throughout the story, but there is also a found family aspect to it. There's also a lot of sense of belonging in the story. Each book follows a different couple as they find their mate and the person that will truly allow them to be themselves. And Joe and Ox's relationship, I believe, is my favorite in this series. It definitely has TJ Klune's humor in it as well. And I forgot to mention, but in Raven's Song, it does follow a older couple. And then in, what's this one called? Brother's Song. I feel like these are out of order. I don't even remember. In one of them, we follow a asexual character, and in the final book, we follow a bisexual character. So there's multiple forms of representation in there, but they're all male-male romances. As for the last book in this category and in this video, I have one of my favorite couples of all time. Yes! We have Radiance by Grace Draven. This was also on one of my top books of the year list, and it is a fantasy romance between a human princess and a Kai prince. In this world, we have the Kai and we have the humans, and two of the human kingdoms are on the brink of war, and the human kingdom decides to make an alliance with the Kai kingdom in hopes of preventing this from happening. And to do that, they have an arranged marriage between the king's niece and the second prince of the Kai. Both of these people are seen as rather unimportant because she's the niece of the king, and he, being the second prince and his brother having had like 6 heirs, is never going to see the throne. But they're important enough to solidify this alliance and prevent war with his other human kingdom. She and him travel to the Kai kingdom together, and they start to build their life together. While both find each other physically repulsive because they are from different species, personality-wise, they click from the very beginning. So this is a friends to lovers story. I really enjoyed their relationship. They have excellent communication. They have a lot of humorous conversations, a very relaxed and natural relationship. I also enjoyed the world building that happened in this, and especially in the second book, the plot that was expanded on and built up was very entertaining and well done. I still think this is one of my favorite couples of all time. I was like instantly obsessed with them from the very beginning all the way to the end of book 2. I just think that they are so sweet and such a wonderful fit. They worked very hard on their relationship and on supporting each other through all the trials. They're very supportive of each other and protective of each other, and very much see themselves as equals who are stronger when they are together. So a very addictive romance that I will probably recommend till the end of time. All right, guys, so those are my romance recommendations. Hopefully you found something new to add to your TBR. As I mentioned in the beginning, please give me recommendations for any of these categories or any categories that I didn't mention that you definitely think I would enjoy or need to expand on. As always, thank you for your support by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!